another episode of the Fuel Report. Excited to be here. Happy to have you all joining us. And like any other week, we got a nice variety of segments coming your way. So we got playoff picks this week. We'll go through teams that are sort of advancing in the playoffs and maybe teams who fell short so far this week. We're going to talk a little bit about some Battle Royale things and related interests. We're going to fast forward into a Purzaa interview, captain of the R6 team, and a content member here on our staff team. We're going to rip CJ's top 10s and some Ontario Esports general conversation. So I'm joined by Reider once more. Welcome back for another week. How you doing here, Reider?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's great to be back. I'm loving doing the podcast every week with you guys. And we always have so much to talk about. Some teams are just going to get started their playoffs. Some teams are about to get deeper into their playoffs. So there's a lot to chat about within Fanshawe, but then we're going to talk a whole ton about esports programs outside of Fanshawe, which is going to be really cool to just compare them between each other, compare them to us as well. So we have a ton to chat about. So make sure you stay tuned. Nightflash, how you doing?
Oh, never been better. Every day that I get to do the Fuel Report, it's always a hoot. And like you said, I'm really excited just to sort of break things down. We've got a lot of exciting stuff going on in the Fuel right now. So a lot has happened this past week that I can't wait to talk about. But I think I'm going to swing things back over to CJ here as we're going to get things kicked off here.
Yeah, you know what? We've talked a lot, and we're going to move into playoff pictures here. We've talked a lot about, teams, we've hinted at it, moving into their playoff journey, teams that have already partaking in their playoff journey. And ultimately, it's just the segment's getting busier and busier as each week goes by. We started off with hot streaks and all that good stuff, and now we've sort of progressed it to a playoff pick format because, well, it's just that time of year. So our playoff picks that you're going to be keeping an eye on this week are as Rainbow Six, Rocket League Academy, Valorant Rising, Rainbow Six Academy, and our CSGO squad is finals bound. And then the squads that have been eliminated are Rocket League and Overwatch. So, you know what? I mentioned finals bound. Let's kick things off with the CSGO squad. These guys picked up a win against Randolph-Macon College to advance to the finals. Now, I know it says Overwatch in the top left, by the way. That is an error on our behalf. So that's certainly supposed to say CSGO, as that is Captain Ugasplata there. But ultimately, these guys just throughout the playoffs, throughout the season, it's been all cylinders go. And when I was casting these guys throughout the regular season, it felt like I was always, keeping an eye on Ugasplata and knowing he was sort of a dominant carry on this team. But as this playoff journey sort of progressed, as you see there, they've gotten 2 consecutive 2-0s on their way to finals action here. So I do believe we have a bracket to take a look at as well, so we can have an idea of the journey they've taken. So they toppled Northwestern CS. They toppled Randolph-Macon, and now they're going to face Purdue Black in the finals. And I'm pretty sure Purdue Black is also in these guys' regular season division, and I do believe they're one of 2 teams to defeat them. So they're going to have a chance at vengeance against a team that has also gone undefeated throughout their playoff journey. But the thing that's impressed me most about the CSGO squad in recent weeks over their playoff journey is that ultimately, it's not just Ugasplata who's sort of being, as I always and will always make this comparison, sort of the bonk on the COD team. Whereas now you have everybody else stepping up. Cheap has been playing, like Ryan has been playing insane the last few weeks on the op. It's been crazy to watch. And then just the other guys, Tyler, Cario, playing just some absolutely big Nylander, CSGO. It's been a fun one to watch. And you know what? These guys are going to be in action for the finals. April 21st, I'm sure we are going to be streaming that. So make sure you come on by and check those guys out in some finals action, because that's what it's all about. That's what everybody's fighting for, an opportunity to get to compete in finals action. Now, a team that has looked prepped and primed, coming off a championship already and sweeping through an undefeated regular season. Nightflash, tell me about this Rainbow Six Siege squad.
Yeah, you really said it with CSGO. They recently just 2-0'd their last 2 victims. Well, R6 2-0'd everyone in the regular season. They went completely undefeated, and I believe this week they're kicking off playoffs here. So I'm pretty excited for that as I get to cast more of their games. But yeah, if you just look at their overall record and their map record, undefeated. And I really can't say enough about these guys. Mason is just an absolute animal. So is Berendo. And then luckily we got to talk to Purzaa in an interview, and I'm pretty excited to air that. But he just sort of went over how while he's not really the one of the main slayers in the game, he really does have an important role where he's just kind of the glue guy to the objective, doesn't sort of just keeps the objective unlocked, doesn't let anybody just swing in there. And these guys have just shown that they're the top dog. A 77 round differential it's unheard of. And map differential being 18 is also unheard of. So these guys, they're going to go to the moon, and I'm super excited to get to watch that. I think we have just sort of a breakdown of their regular season, so we kind of have an idea of who they may tee up against. I believe it's guaranteed that they're teeing up against Clark Red in that first round. But then after that, it's kind of up in the air who they get to see. There could be some upsets. Obviously, I personally am expecting the RMU Blue team in the finals. That was definitely their closest match. And even then, it was still a 2-0. So, I have these guys as a lock to take home this championship. I don't know about the rest of you, but speaking of people who could take home the championship, I'm going to swing things back over to CJ to talk about some car soccer real quick.
Oh, yeah. The Rocket League team has ultimately, they've sort of wrapped their season. No, sorry. Rocket League Academy is going on in the playoffs. Captain Rusty G, sorry, had a moment there. I'm like, Rocket League? Those guys are eliminated, but I had a moment there. Rusty G, the captain of the T2 squad, seen here. Also, I'm not sure if he's a captain, but I know he's the member of our Apex team as well. So just a bit of a do-it-all guy over there, but a nice 5-3 record. But that map diff shows that these guys have sort of had to fight over some adversity to get to this sort of position here. But the key is these guys have won 4 straight weeks. So ultimately, they didn't have a really strong start to their season, but to rally 4 wins in a row off, heading into the playoffs in NECC, they're in 3rd place. Absolutely massive. And I've talked about this a lot for the Rocket League 1 team. The Rocket League 1 team had a really slow start to the year because ultimately they had a lot of substitutes from this T2 squad. So you have a lot of guys who would be playing with T2 up in T1, and that's going to affect synergy. But that means conversely, this T2 squad was constantly missing a player here, there, and everywhere, and they just weren't able to develop that connection as you may expect. But ultimately, once the substituting rate on the 1 team dropped down, it just seems like both teams have started clicking on all cylinders. Now, we've mentioned one academy team. We got to swing it back to another academy team, Rainbow Six Siege Academy, Nightflash. I believe they're captained by the super sub Kenny, right?
Yeah. Kenny is the captain, and I always forget about these guys. They never get a stream. So I always forget to bring them up and sort of mention them in contention here. But yeah, Rainbow Six did an absolutely amazing job at clinching a playoff spot. Playoff spot. They definitely didn't have the prettiest record over their season, but be sure to keep a watch out for them too. Unfortunately, they're not going to be getting streamed by us unless R6 T1 gets knocked out, but be sure to keep an eye out. We'll if they win, there'll be an announcement. We'll announce their games either way. But yeah, they are also heading in, and I got to say, I'm extremely excited to sort of see what comes of that. They're not exactly the best team by far in their division, but I definitely think that team has potential. We've seen County compete at the division higher on the T1 team, and he's done amazing things on that team. So I'm definitely interested to see what kind of numbers he can drop on T2. The guy is an absolute animal. Pretty sure he had like a 1.8 for the 3 or 4 games that he subbed in for Fanshawe Fuel T1, and there are a few divisions lower. So I'm definitely excited to see what he can do. We also have some amazing talent in Angel Grime and Thor. So those are 2 more players to sort of look out for. But yeah, it should hopefully their playoff run makes it to the finals. We'll have to wait and see though. But without further ado, I think I'm going to swing things over to Reider to talk about another tactical shooter that we play, and that's Valorant.
Yeah, the Val team, they got a break this week. They didn't start their playoffs as we may have initially thought they would have. They had an off week, so they just got to chill and relax, and it actually gave them a second to figure out their roster, as they did not know who they were going to bring into the playoffs. They had one too many players to choose from, but we know for sure what the final roster is going to look like, because I had a good talk with team captain Boyce. He's got it figured out for this first playoff game, which will be happening on Monday, so just 2 days away. But this team is going to look like Swarns, Toasty, Boyce, of course, and then Akimbo and Invicii. That's the team that they're going to be carrying in the playoffs, and it's a good one. I mean, 2 Radiants going into playoffs, 2 guys that didn't start consistently in the regular season. Having them both now consistently in playoffs is going to be huge for them. And if we have to look at their stats in the regular season, I mean, this team didn't have the greatest start. They are negative in their round differential. Their map differential is only +1, and their record is also only +1 series at 5-4. And the only reason why I have these guys making a fantastic push in the playoffs is because how they played at the end of the season. I mean, they went on a roll, a winning streak to finish things off, much as some other fueled teams also did. But because of that, I really think they have a fighting chance in these playoffs. Now, we look at the standings. Of course, the Fuel in the 5th spot is on the lower end of the teams that made the playoffs, and their first game will be against TMU Gold. TMU also rank-wise has a stacked roster. And after that, I think the bracket goes, they play the winner of OTSU and St. Clair Academy, and it should more or less be certain that it will be St. Clair Academy. So these guys really have a fight in the playoffs, but if they can get over the hump of that first game, TMU being a fantastic Valorant team, definitely those standings don't reflect how good that Toronto Metro team is. If they're able to get by them, then of course they got the big guys to get by. But if they get over the first 2 rounds in the playoffs, they could win the whole thing in a division where initially we thought this Fanshawe field team shouldn't have been slotted into. So their road to success is very, very bumpy, but they could certainly make it there. Now, we do have another Valorant team that is still competing in playoffs, and it is Valorant Rising, and they have a positive record as well, actually a mirrored record to T1, 5-4 at NECC action, but their maps is substantially better, 11-9 with a +2 differential. Good round diff as well, 26. So these guys have a great chance at moving on in their division. Of course, they got Mr. Kenny there squatting up for Val Rising. And one of the most interesting parts of this team to me is, I mean, I had a couple of death shifts this week, and I saw a bunch of these guys just grinding it out on Valorant. And that's exactly what these Academy and Rising teams was what their goal is. They want to be able to develop players to move up to that T1 team in the coming semesters. And I really think that's a possibility. This Rising team looks strong. The Academy team looks strong this year as well. So I don't think Valorant at Fanshawe is going anywhere anytime soon, and should continue to bring home trophies again and again. And we're going to see which one, Rising or T1, if either of them are going to bring home some trophies this semester. But that's actually the end of the list for Fuel winning teams. Unfortunately, this next section is teams that made the playoffs but didn't get as far as they would have liked. I'm going to throw it over to CJ to talk about Rocket League T1.
Yeah, that's why I got a little mixed up earlier in the stream. I'm like, Rocket League, not quite time for that. These guys had an absolutely tremendous season overall. And you know what? It just seems to be a theme throughout our Fuel teams where these guys just start to turn it on as the season progresses. Ultimately, they made it through 2 rounds of the playoffs, finding success, but it was in Game 3 against Stockton where these guys just fell short. But you know what? They were playing masterfully. You could really see the teamwork start to click as the season progressed because, in the early season, it felt like when I was commentating these guys, I was talking a lot about a lack of set pieces, maybe a lot of just just making plays up as you go. Whereas down the stretch in the season, all of a sudden, you saw set pieces. You saw they were really trying to execute an offense, and it was a lot of fun to watch. So these guys weren't unable to make it past round 4 to what I would believe is the semis in the next round, but they had an absolutely tremendous season. Now, this next team, I'm going to toss it over to Nightflash for, and I don't just want you to tell us about their season. Really, really explain to me what happened, because it got kind of weird with the playoff matchup there, I do believe, where the game was paused. You guys were going to play another map. I'm not sure what was going on, so break it down a bit for me.
Yeah, so this is a wild one, and this was my lock to sort of go all the way, and I'm really upset to see their season end in such a sort of contentious fashion. So Overwatch, unfortunately, they fell short, teed up against the RW Hawks this past week, and they did get 3-1 by them. However, there is a bit of contention around that. As RWU, there was a rule broken. In a series, you're allowed 2 5-minute breaks. RWU decided to take both of their 5-minute breaks after game 1, going into game 2. Their 5-minute break was up, and then mysteriously, one of their players just happened to disconnect right off the rip at the start of the game. Get match 1, there were no connection issues. Nobody was complaining about ping, nothing like that. And then they take both their 5s, so a total of 10 minutes, right off the rip right after the match, and then they take another 5 because this guy quote unquote disconnects. So essentially the contention was they got another 5-minute break, sort of making it a 15-minute wait time, because somebody disconnected, and normally those breaks are used for disconnects or if they're going over strats or whatever. So there was a contest made by the Fuel, and initially the admins were like, okay, yeah, like you guys win that map, like the Fuel will give you that map and you'll play game 5 on Sunday, which would be tomorrow. But more recently, the Overwatch devs, or not the devs, but the admins over at the ECAC sort of went back on their word, which is kind of neither here nor there. I'm not a huge fan of that. It's just sort of seems like, okay, if you made a mistake, you kind of got to live with it, because now you're just sort of, you're eliminating the team just for the sake of eliminating the team at that point. Like if RWU truly was better, they'd play that game 5 and sort of see where the cards fall, see how the dominoes fall. But ECAC decided, no, we made a mistake, so we're going to redact that. We're gonna go back on what we said, and Overwatch gets eliminated from it. They managed to make it to those quarterfinals though, so definitely nothing to sort of scoff at. They had a really good season. It's just sort of unfortunate the way that the cookie crumbled there at the end, especially this team had so much sort of fire under them, and especially with it going to that map 5, with it being the control map. They won the first control map. I definitely think they had it in their wheelhouse to win that second control map, especially on a map like Lijiang Tower. That's their real comfort pick for control maps. But it is what it is. It's sort of the way that the cookie crumbles, and unfortunately, it just didn't crumble our way today. But yeah, be sure to be on the lookout for these guys next semester. They're a really good team. They had a bit of a stumble out of the gate right off the rip, but be sure to be on the lookout for them. I'm sure they're going to pop off in the fall semester. But what do you guys think? Who do you think's going to go all the way? Do you think that ECAC should have just sort of stuck with their initial ruling? Like, what do you guys think? Shoot.
For Overwatch, that's a complicated can of fish. You know what I mean? Because for me, ultimately, as a Fanshawe student in general, you want to see the guys do well. You want to see their team succeed. But I'm personally actually of the belief that the ECAC, they just messed up in the first place, because when you start rescheduling playoff games, right then and there, they should have been rule booked. But if not, you just don't have time to start bouncing stuff around, playing things another day. And you just, we talked about it in our podcast production meetings. You gotta maintain a sort of level of consistency, professionalism, regardless of which way it falls. And ultimately, I feel like it was an unnecessarily wishy-washy process. But you know what? I bet you it's the first time they've been faced with this sort of situation. Justin, you've been casting a little bit longer than I have. Have you ever seen some sort of weird rule booky type thing like this in the playoffs?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you know what? ECAC isn't the first league to make a decision that might have been a little bit questionable. It is true that the Overwatch team's opponents took an extra long tech pause when they shouldn't have. But does that constitute a map win? It really all depends on what the rule book says. And I was actually there when the team captain of the Overwatch team was on the phone with 2 or 3 ECAC admins trying to get it figured out. It kept us in the esports room for maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours after the match had ended as they tried to figure things out. But essentially, I think at first the league said, you know, you don't have an updated rule book and whatnot, or they said that at first. But then they realized that what the opponents did was against the rules, and that by the rule book the Fuel should be given a map win, and then we should play game 5 on Sunday. But the reason being that it didn't happen on Sunday was because the other team claimed to have absolutely no time at any other point to be able to get together and actually play a map 5 was one of the things I heard. And then I also heard that the league just overruled themselves and said, hey, we're going back on this, that what we decided wasn't fair. So we're going to give them the win as it originally stood. And you guys, unfortunately, are eliminated this season. So a little bit of back and forth from ECAC. Unfortunately, it is unprofessional and it's not something you want to see. But I can't say that ECAC is really the only league that has done this. For us, we've had issues with the NECC in the past. We've had issues with NACE in the past as well, the CCL, and trying to. It's really hard though, from the league's perspective, to try to figure out, what exactly is fair, and if 5 minutes extra of a tech pause constitutes a map forfeit, right? So it's a question, and ultimately, at the end of the day, whatever the league says should go. That's how it should be. And that's what happened here. So unfortunately, Overwatch was eliminated, but it should be noted that Overwatch had a chance. They played just as good as their opponents and are equally deserving to have moved on in the playoffs. And for them to finish in the semifinals to get either third or fourth, I don't know if a consolation match is going to be played. That is a huge victory for them in ECAC, and they should definitely be proud of it, no matter how the cookie crumbles.
Absolutely. And before we move out of playoff picks, I also want to mention another team. This time on the winning bracket. We talked about it on the lead up to the playoffs, and it's the Rainbow Six team. You know what I mean? They're this sort of dominant, rolling squad who has had success all season long. And, the Academy team, talking about them now, also having success, but for me, there's no more pressure than being a completely undefeated squad entering into the playoffs. Because at the end of the day, when you look at hockey, for example, I don't think a President's Trophy winner, so the team that finished first in the league, has ever gone on to win a Stanley Cup. They may have before, but it's been not in my lifetime. I can say that for absolute certain. So it's just, there's this inherent additional level of pressure when you enter the playoffs as a 1 seed, and that pressure gets ratcheted up even higher when you're a completely undefeated squad. Now, I have a little bit of experience commentating, working with this R6 squad, but not as much as you guys. Do you think this squad is, because they haven't had to deal with adversity, do you think that they find themselves in a situation where they're down or they're in a tough spot on a map where they're ready to bounce back from that?
That's a really good question. And saying they haven't had to deal with adversity, I don't really think that's fair. There's been close maps. There has been, we see, somebody's map pick, like an opponent's map pick that the Fuel doesn't play that much, or the other team just no life's on. And we see that these close games, and, the Fuel will be down a couple rounds, or they'll be down, the other team will be on match point, and Fanshawe have to sort of claw their way back from being down to sort of win the game. So I'm not sure if it's really fair to say they haven't faced any adversity, but I definitely do think that there is going to be sort of a large amount of pressure. Not only have they gone undefeated this season, they are also trying to defend their championship. Um, and they're riding this high, and maybe if they lose a map, we'll see if they sort of crumble under pressure or not. But personally, I think that being down a map is one thing, but you sort of have a brand new map to go in, fresh state of mind, whatever. I think where the real pressure comes in is when it's a close game. Like if you're in a close game where the other team has 6 points and you have 5, and you can't afford to lose another round, and you're able to claw 2-3 rounds back, 4 rounds back. Not only has this team gone undefeated in the season, they've also gone undefeated in overtime rounds, which in my personal opinion are some of the most stressful situations ever. They haven't dropped an overtime round yet. So I think that is just sort of that sort of goes to show how good they are at handling pressure and handling a time where there's a lot of adversity. There's a lot of things stacked up against them. If they lose the first round and they're on defense, they then have to win an attack round and a defensive round, and they've yet to sort of crumble under that pressure. So I think the R6 chat is definitely in good standing, and I think that they do sort of have that clutch gene to sort of come out. And I'm saying it here. They're going to go undefeated on the whole season, playoffs and all. They're not going to drop a map in playoffs either, because the closest map that we saw was against RMU on RMU's map pick, and Fanshawe still sort of pumped them on their map pick. So I think Fanshawe's in a really good position. They play some sort of different maps that you don't get to see a whole heck of a lot in competitive. So they sort of have that playing to their advantage, and we see them play maps like Border and Reider. If you can help me out here, what's their other map pick? Their most
they like Villa and Chalet.
Exactly. Chalet is sort of more of a meta pick, but like Villa and Border are 2 maps that you almost never see, especially Border, and they're extremely comfortable on Border. They've had some close games, but also had some absolute blowouts. Like we're talking 7-1s. I don't think I've seen them 7-0 a team on either of those maps, but there have been some blowouts on those maps. So I think that they're, while it may be a little shaky, they're definitely sort of in their comfort zone on those maps and can compete on sort of the more meta pick maps. So I think they're cruising at this point. I think they have it in cruise control, and I think they're going to go back to back. What do you think, Reider?
Well, you know what? There's a lot more to play for than you might actually think. Of course, there's a championship to play for, but let me paint you a picture. Every single one of these guys, including the majority of the academy team, is coming back in the fall. These guys are still going to be playing together in September, and it's pretty clear at this point that the NECC is not going to put them in challengers again, meaning that team captain Purzaa and management Angel Graham has to put their best foot forward in September. And if you're not Mason and Brendo and dropping 15 plus every map, you might be looking at super sub Kenny and watching him light up academy, and you might get worried because of that. Kenny played phenomenally as a sub. He's not going to be playing in the playoffs unless he's absolutely needed because of injury or time issue, whatever. But Kenny proved in the couple games he played this season, two or three games he played this season, that he can definitely keep up with that T1 team and put up some pretty big numbers. And when this Fanshawe field team in September, who will likely field the same team at the start, gets in the champions, more than likely NECC champs, which is one division higher than they're currently in, they might realize that they're a little bit more out of their league. Now, I don't think they're going to be bottom boarding. I mean, possibly double champions here, regular season President's Trophy winners this season so far anyway. they're not going to bottom board, but there's definitely going to be a lot of teams that give them a lot more issues in that division up. So they're going to they might experiment bringing Kenny up. There's a lot more to play for here for these players than this championship because of the extent of the future that these players have playing together. I think that they will take this championship. I have no doubt in my mind at all, considering their stats are just unbelievable. Teams that could give them some trouble, Arcadia. They beat them. Arcadia has beat Fanshawe before. They very well could do it again. I think the way the standings line up, Arcadia and the Fuel see each other like second round or something like that, which is, I mean, depending on how this season, like if we play the whole season again, Arcadia might be better than RMU. They're the team that gave the Fuel most difficulty except for RMU themselves. And we should most likely see RMU in the finals, which is also a very capable team. Unfortunately, they just didn't give Fanshawe a run for money in the map 2 in the one series that they played against Fanshawe. So I think Acadia probably has more potential to beat Fanshawe, who see Fanshawe earlier in the playoff bracket. But ultimately, RMU should have the final swing at the Fuel, and I think the Fuel just come out on top. I think Brendo and Mason and the rest of the team, they just play so well together. They got everything locked down, and they do their research on their opponents before the games. And now because they've seen everybody, I think that actually works in Fanshawe's favor. Fanshawe takes this championship. How this team looks moving forward is going to be relatively similar, but there's a lot for these guys to play for right now.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. You know what? I always love our playoff pictures segment. Get a good idea of where everybody's at. Make sure you check in. Check to see when we're streaming. Catch the Rainbow Six playoff run this coming Friday, next week's Friday. You know, CSGO finals as well. Make sure you catch this. Now, you know, we got a little taste of the Battle Royale life when we held a tournament here at Fanshawe earlier. Reider, Battle Royale. We got a Warzone World Series coming up.
Yeah, there is the Warzone World Series, and this, I mean, the competition format for this tournament is just wild. In total, there is $1.2 million in prizing. That is completely unheard of. I think this can be like associated, or you can use the Fortnite World Cup as an example of how big this World Series is. But in April and May, it starts. Stage 1, NA and Europe will have an in-game open where the top 50 go into qualifiers. The top 25 of qualifiers go into the regional finals. 25 will be invited. And then there's a $150K prize pool per region in the regional finals. Stage 2 happens in June and July. And you can see where the bottom 25, they got to go back into qualifiers, with the top 25 in regional finals get right back in the regional finals once again. There's a last chance qualifier in July as well after the second regional finals. And then the global finals, $600K in prize. I mean, this is just so excellently laid out, and it's going to be so fun to watch. It's a little bit complicated, but I mean, when you think about it, this is really taking the best performing squads while giving squads who may have made mistakes second chances to make it all the way to the global final. And I myself am going to watch that. The scoring is really interesting as well. Warzone 2 is just such a different breed than Warzone 1 as well. It is just as entertaining. So I'm certain that I will tune in, and you should as well. Now, speaking of Battle Royales, we have a Battle Royale tournament going on, and this is just recently announced, I believe. Angel Grind will be hosting our second tournament, Apex tournament, this semester, and it's going to be happening on April 21st. And I know there's a lot of people in chat that are probably excited about this. A lot of people that played in the first one. This is going to be an excellent tournament. It will be also casted and streamed, although it is on the same day as I believe a CSGO playoff game. We're going to get both on stream, so don't worry yourselves just one bit. End of semester Apex tournament hosted by Angel Grime on April 21st. I think I might play in this. Do you guys want to trio with me? Do we want to hop in some Apex?
You're a little late for the party on the accord of me. I am already signed up as a player in a 3-stack. You know, I had the experience of casting the last one. You were there with me observing, and it looked like so much freaking fun. You know what? We're going to have to take the day off of work and get involved ourselves, because you know what? There are a lot of really good teams But there's also, some, I don't want to put down any teams, but just average people, who are just looking to have fun, play it casually, and are not getting those scrim reps in, going to competition. So that nice variety of people you have competing just ensures it's going to be a good time, because you know what? You might get stomped, you might do the stomping, but you're not going to have to fear for your life at every single moment on the map. Now, we have a new segment in the works, so nobody's gotten to see me play any video games yet. But I can assure you I am a caster and not on any of our teams for a reason. I can assure you that. So I'm absolutely going to be competing. I am signed up and ready to go. Now, will I be seeing you guys very potentially then down there?
I think you can play COD Academy, CJ. You can play COD Academy. It's
definitely a possibility that you might see me. Not sure if I'm going to be working it or not. Hope I am. But if not, I might have to call in the ringer. Might have to hit Rusty G's line and see if he can't put me in the backpack and sort of carry me to that win. That way I can just hold it over Reider's head for the rest of eternity.
This guy wouldn't even take my Valorant challenge the other night. This guy wouldn't even play me.
I'm not gonna lie. My PC's a little bit kind of made of wood.
We were in the fuel station, buddy. This is an official challenge. We gotta have a Valorant challenge because of our argument over these two clips.
All right.
You know what?
We'll see.
If that goes down, I'm gonna need a screenshot of the final scoreboard so we can bring it back up in the fuel report and we can see who reigns supreme in Valorant. Because as long as you guys sign up, we'll get to see who reigns supreme in some Apex next week. And you know what? The tournament went well when it was only supposed to be 3 games. We're sitting there, we've cast it. It's like, okay, time to pack up shop. And everybody's like, whoa, maybe a 4th, maybe a 5th. Everybody was just roaring to go to get some extra games in. And it just looks like a whole ton of fun. So I hope we getting involved, back from behind the casting desk and onto the field, so to say. I just wanted to mention something before I forget about the Warzone tournament as well. This is the first time ever sort of Call of Duty's opened itself up in a global setting to non-North America and European squads. So they've made it very specific in this World Series to note that this is open to everybody. So Mexico, Brazil, Latin North America, Latin South Asia, and 2 other short forms that I don't know what they stand for, so I couldn't tell you what they are. But the point being is not only is there a massive prize pool, not only can anybody get involved and play, but now they're sort of expanding the outreach of who can get involved in general. Because you know what? I love to say this all the time. The nastiest Apex player, for example, or the nastiest Warzone player on planet Earth could have never played the game before, could have never have tried it, and they just haven't had the exposure, haven't had the opportunity to watch it. And as we see more events like a Warzone World Series where anybody can get involved in that, and then you look at little community outreach events like we're hosting here down at the Fuel, it provides an opportunity to expand the community and the player base in esports.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. I believe this is their 2nd World Series of Warzone, if I'm not mistaken. I think they did one in Warzone 1, unless I'm tripping. But yeah, I definitely do agree that it's sort of, you said it best. The best player for really any game could have never touched the game, it's kind of mind-boggling to think about if I'm being honest. But yeah, I'm super duper excited to see how the World Series of Warzone shakes down. And I got to say, I think I'm even more excited for our Apex tournament because, that is right around the corner. It's coming up in 6 days. And it's always good to see sort of some familiar faces or some unknown players get involved in Fuel and see who takes that dub home. But CJ, I think I'm going to swing it back over to you.
Yeah, I'll get us pulled into this Purzaa interview. And, I just, as we're sneaking out of the Battle Royale there, I guess it would be the hidden reveal of my gamer tag is I do believe the only staff member who doesn't use a gamer tag or a pseudonym of some sorts. I'm just CJ. A little boring, but if I'm on stream for that Apex tournament, everybody will get an opportunity to see what that gamer tag is. Purzaa, the captain of this R6 squad. We spent so much time talking about them today. I hope you're not sick of it, because you're going to hear a lot more during this interview. Purzaa, what a good guy, just fun to hang out with, works on the content team. I'm sure lots of you throughout Fuel Nation have gotten an opportunity to get to know Purzaa a good little bit. He works a long death shift. Those of you who go and frequent the room, you know it's been hot the last few days. He has one of the longest shifts and has absolutely braved the room like a champion. So you know what, everybody, you'll have a chance. Grab a drink, kick back, relax. We're going to send it over to our interview with Purzaa. When we come out of that, we'll have some CJ top 10s and a little breakdown of Ontario esports after this.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another segment on the Fuel Report. As you guys know, I am joined by interview guest Purzaa. Purzaa, how you doing today?
I'm pretty good. How about you?
I am also joined by my co-host of the podcast, CJ, or CJ Goder. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Excited to be here for another round of our interviews. And you know what? We've kind of been saving any member of the R6 team for a little bit later. You know, they were on a burner all year long. And you know what? Entering playoffs time. What time like the present to sort of delve in, hear a little bit more about the team, the inner workings and whatnot. So, no, I'm definitely excited.
So am I. And obviously we didn't want to get the interview before they go undefeated and assume that they're going to go undefeated. So it's official. Rainbow Six went undefeated this season. Congratulations, Purzaa.
Thank you.
Massive accomplishment. But yeah, they had a great season, and I'm going to send it back over to CJ to kick us off here with.
Yeah, ultimately for me, it's just, you know, tell us about yourself. How'd you get into video games? What's your name? What program you're in? You know, just some of the basics.
So my name is James Perez, also known as Purzaa. The way that I pretty much got into video games was pretty much just watching my brother play COD. Saw that happen, hopped on COD, and then after all of that, it was kind of transitioning into PC. I think my first PC game, like I hate to say it was Fortnite. Relatively, it was fun. Went to a couple tournaments for that. Went to a LAN, and then I got into Siege from one of my buddies, and then throughout COVID, I started playing even more Siege, and then had the opportunity to play it here, and just decided to go for it.
Yeah, and obviously undefeated season. Clearly, you're doing something right here. Siege, obviously, a good choice for you, and you know that we always talk about roles on a team. You know, there's the glue guys, there's the IGLs, there's so many roles. There's the fraggers. What would you say that in Siege? What's your role? What's your job on the map?
Well, so as for like my role, I'm pretty much going to be your main anchor for the team. I'm pretty much just staying on site, making sure like the site's being held, no one's like just running through, and then of course we have like our roamers, Brendo and Mason. We have Jack, who is kind of just roaming off site, but close enough so if he has to come back, he can. And Tucker is going to be our second anchor. He pretty much has the same thing as me, where we have to stay on site, but he's a little bit more like more engaged into the battles. I'm more of just, if we could play off the round through just time, why not?
No, absolutely. So you played Fortnite up through, you know, COVID mainly, a little bit of comp action there. And now you're playing Rainbow. So when did that, like, when did you go, like, it's R6 time, this is my new focus?
So, funny enough, so it went from, like, Fortnite into Siege, and then it went into Valorant. Really liked Valorant, but it wasn't a game that I could see myself, like, playing all the way up till now. Really, Tucker was the original team captain of the R6 team, and he messaged me asking if I wanted to play. And pretty much after that, started playing, fell in love with the game again, and then even up till our second semester for first year, we picked up Brendo and pretty much just stuck with it.
Yeah, and, you know, I keep saying it. Obviously, the team works. Brendo is an amazing talent. So is Mason. And everybody on the team is an amazing talent. I'm going to stick on the topic of R6 here, but less on your career, more so in-game. This was my closing question last week to Ninelander. It's going to be one of my opening ones to you. Other than Black Ice, what is your favorite gun skin or character skin in the game?
Black Ice, to me, is honestly not really the greatest. I personally don't really care about gun skins, if I got to be honest with you, in Siege. As for, like, operator skins, there are some nice esports skins, but if I got to be honest with you, don't really have a favorite. I just pretty much run whatever. You have, like, the emerald skins and everything like that. Those are nice, but really don't really care about skins.
Well, you know, here at the Fuel, we also have our jerseys. We have our frequent uniform and attire, and, you know, we've grown to get accustomed to Nightflash and his palm tree. So I figured, you know what, it's 30 degrees today. Purzaa, you'd know, you got to slow roast in the room all day long. You know, we found out that the AC will be turned on around May. Well, it's not May now, and that is not helpful. But I felt it was important to sort of rival Nightflash's Hawaiian shirt wearing and bring some power, some action of my own. So you know what, Purzaa, you may not have a preference for gun skins, but whose Hawaiian shirt are you feeling a little bit more on this fine Friday evening?
I'm not gonna lie, I do really like Nightflash's, like, neon on black. But if we gotta stick with, like, Hawaiian shirts, CJ has to take the cake. Mainly, like, it's just a classic Hawaiian. This is, like, more of, like, a, like, 80s Hawaiian. But, like, if you just think about a Hawaiian shirt, it's pretty much just CJ's.
You know, we were talking about it before we got in on air today. You know what I do? Like, I look at your shirt and I just see, like, Miami Vice CSI or something like that. Like, you're looking like you're ready to bust some narcos. Like,
Yeah, man, that's the look.
I'm a fan. I love it.
Wait for the stash to come in, too. I'm going to be looking like Tom Selleck out here.
Got the glasses on,
got the
prep
glasses,
and primed as well.
Looks like I just walked off the first tee at Augusta National. Got my TaylorMade hat on. We're not talking about golf, though. This is a Fuel podcast. We don't have a Fuel golf team, but no, yeah, I love the shirt personally. It's I call it my party shirt because whenever I go to a party, I wear this. But I figured, you know what, I'm gonna keep it consistent and wear this shirt every time I do the podcast. It's now instead of my party shirt, it is now my podcast shirt. So that's why I'm always in it.
Well, you know what? If I'm going to go to one pre-podcast interview conversation, I got to jump to another one I was having with you, Purzaa, on the way down. And you know what? You guys won a championship last semester. You know what I mean? Which is huge. It's massive in and of its own right, and that's an accomplishment. And you know what? You lost some players, right? I do believe.
We lost one player, and that was Apollo. I believe that's one player. Yeah, just Apollo, pretty much.
Okay, so you guys had to make, like, a little bit of an adjustment there, but it's just, for me, you know, you never know how well. I'm sure you guys had prior experience filling that last spot, so you had a good idea, but it's just slightly new team, slightly different synergies, maybe different roles coming in. But I'm going to ask a slightly different question anyways. What's it like with the potential now entering the playoffs, coming off an outrageously strong regular season, coming off a championship season? Like, there could be no more momentum than that. How do you guys feel entering into the playoffs?
Honestly, we're looking to do the same. We're looking to pretty much go undefeated within the playoffs, win that championship, pretty much just have that momentum keep going. We've been working on a couple of things. You know, we've been scrimming. We've been coming up with strats and all of that. So it's honestly going to be great. I think it's going to be one hell of a stream for pretty much everyone every week. Just know we're going to show up. We really want that trophy. We want to go back to back. And I did just want to, like, mention Nightflash. I did call it. We were going to go undefeated.
I know. Dude, I say it every week on the podcast. I say it every time I cast R6. He called it. Yeah, we weren't even in regular season yet. You called it in preseason after the Arcadia match. Because I was like, you know, you guys just lost the match, blah, blah, blah. Like, how is this going to affect your focus in the regular season? Oh, you know, if anything, it's just going to turn us up even more. We're going undefeated this season. I just sort of shrugged it off as like, oh, yeah, it's just overconfident. They're going to get smoked by Arcadia or whatever. And then this guy plays Arcadia, and you guys pumped him.
Yeah. not only that, we also didn't drop a single map, which is pretty much uncalled for in like collegiate esports.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Now, we talked about the championship. So obviously winning the championship, you punch your ticket to nationals, right?
Yep.
Now, nationals, what's the roster looking like? Because realistically, you have options now, especially if you win nationals this semester as well. You have options. So what do you think the roster is looking like for nationals?
So the main roster in my head right now would be me, Brendo, Mason, Tucker, and then that fifth player. So I kind of want to go with two options here. So I want to go with Apollo since he is eligible, or I want to go with Kenny. It really depends on how we're really feeling throughout that thing, because we do have pretty much around 2 months to pretty much go for that. So
and
we could pretty much play with everyone, get everyone up with our strats and everything, see who does better, and then go from there.
Makes sense. But that you know what? That's some premium gas going to both Apollo and Kenny. You know, you have an amazing talent in Make It. And, you know, also amazing talent in Kenny and Apollo. And Apollo obviously hasn't played in a minute.
Yeah.
I know from my personal experience with him, he always complains about his ping whenever he gets on Siege being at like 700 or something. So he hasn't really been able to play. So I don't know how practiced he'll be, but they're all like you can't make a bad choice in the pickings that you have. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure we'll announce that at some point, what that roster is going to be. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
A video.
Oh, definitely a video.
Who knows?
Definitely a video.
I mean, the videos have been pretty fire so far, and you know what? That's a perfect segue. I can't grab that and ignore it as well. You guys have had some pretty dope R6 videos come out over time, and you know it's not like no other team gets any content made, but these are a little different. You know, a little next level. They got a little bit of extra sauce on them. You know what I mean? What's it been like just as an experience? You know, getting to do that like high level production to get those sort of memorable events like these videos for you guys.
Honestly, it's been a pretty nice thing just knowing that I can pretty much bring in like my team just to do some other stuff off of Fuel. So initially it was supposed to be just, game clips and all that. And then I started pretty much doing some research on some roster announcements, did all of that. And then found out some cool stuff from BDS, who does honestly amazing IRL team announcements. So I pretty much brung that upon my brother, who is a videographer. He pretty much did the whole video. First video came out great. Second video, in my opinion, has topped the first video. It's honestly been a blast. Even if we have to wait for a video, it's just cool seeing everyone being engaged, seeing themselves being announced and everything.
Yeah, no, the videos are hype, and I'm hoping that at some point on this podcast we'll play the clip and insert clip here of one of the videos. But it's the videos are amazing. They're hands down, they're amazing. But yeah, you guys create so much content. First semester, I'm thinking of a particular Rainbow Six meme in mind that was created by yours truly. A little bit of Kool-Aid Man action, and you guys make amazing content. You give us videos, you give us TikToks, a whole bunch of stuff. So thank you guys for that. But I'm
No, that's all right. I'll come in and I'll grab it off you quickly there. So you know what? Let's throw it in the Wayback Machine for a moment there. I'm just curious, everybody, like, we've talked about this a good bit throughout the podcast, and it's just where video games is in a person's life. It's different for everybody. Some people have gotten a lot of comp play in. Some people like single-player games where they can just sort of cool down after a day of work. Like, when did you really start getting into video games in general of any level, and sort of what role does it play in your life?
So when videos became really enjoyable to me was definitely throughout COVID, since you couldn't go anywhere. Pretty much the only thing that you could do is sit at home. You had to do school from home. So I was just pretty much playing video games throughout that whole time. met a bunch of cool people online, had that thing, possibly wanted to pursue streaming, and then coming to college, having the opportunity to play, even brought it back even more. Pretty much what my main thing is, the connections that you make through gaming is actually pretty insane. Like, going back to the Siege team, love the guys. Like, they're pretty much my second family. We do a lot of things outside of, the gaming scene. We used to live with each other. Not right now, but definitely going to happen back up in September. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But honestly, it's just really the connections that really want me to keep on playing video games.
Yeah, and that's so great to hear. Obviously, I was aware that you guys did have an R6 house. We'll put that in quotes. It's not actually sponsored by Fuel, so I'm not going to call it the R6 house. But yeah, you guys were all in very close proximity to each other. So I guess my next question is, we touched on how you started gaming and sort of what role it plays in your life. I'm going to go in a similar direction in what is your favorite game. Doesn't have to be competitive, just favorite game overall.
Favorite game for me, if I had one game to play for a long time, so if we're just going based off weekly, I really do like Siege. But memorable mention, Minecraft, whenever you get that like, just, you're burnt out of any video game.
Like the month of
and then,
just pure Minecraft.
You're just like burnt out of your favorite game. You go onto Minecraft, start a server with all your friends. That gaming thing goes back, and then you're pretty much back on your favorite game again, pumped to play it, and then, of course, that dip again. You find another game, and then it just keeps rolling back to the same game.
Yeah, you know what? It's a continuous cycle of different games, different things to try, new avenues. I love your mention of community earlier. We've referred to community talk so much on the podcast in general because, in general, esports is just a great place to meet new people, a diverse group of people. You can literally find anybody involved in esports in some sort of way, shape, or form. Well, we've talked about the past. We've talked about the upcoming present. Let's take a hop and a scooch and a look into the future here. Is there any upcoming sort of titles you're really excited to give a go gaming-wise?
I haven't really heard much. I know Ubisoft just released their new game that's like, I don't know what it's called. I think it's like X Defiant or something. It's something like that. It's a new shooter game. Right now it's in closed beta. Just looking forward for that to open up, see how that goes. I have a feeling that it might be kind of like what happened to Splitgate, where it was a fun game, everyone was on it, and then pretty much just left, just because there's a lot more dominant games. But honestly, if I have to go for like one game that I'm really looking forward to, it would have to be CS2.
Great pick. Personally, I'm looking forward to CS2 as well. Not a huge PC gamer, but I'll definitely rip that. Want to check out what my butterfly knife case hardened battle scarred looks like on the new engine. Hopefully it's pretty. I'm not too sure yet, but
hopefully it's still there.
Oh, it'll still be there. I'm not selling it unless you hit my line if you want to buy it.
Hopefully the skins will transfer over.
They do. It's been confirmed. They do. God, that would be so tragic. $1,300 knife just flushed down the drain.
That'd be so smart by...
Oh, it'd be genius by gamers.
Genius.
Like, that's just silly marketing. It's like, you know what? We're going to release this free again, but you sure as heck going to buy all them skins again.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? That's the classic free-to-play era we're in now. Now, you know what? We've talked a lot about Purzaa the player. Let's talk about Purzaa the Fanshawe Fuel staff member. Because you know what? For those that don't go to the room, they might just know you as an R6 player, the captain of that team. You know what I mean? They might not know you have a desk shift. They might not know you're a part of the content team. What's that experience been like for you, being a player and a staff member?
Nothing really goes through my head when it comes to that. In the end of the day, working at Fuel is definitely great. You get to meet, a bunch of cool people. Before, I haven't even talked to, CJ before. Pretty cool dude. Nightflash, Talk to him every here and there, but nothing too frequent ever since I've been like a staff member, been talking to everyone. It pretty much just engages me more into like our community, because not only people just walk into the fuel room, pretty much grab a PC, grab an Xbox or a Switch, go and play. You get to talk to them for a bit before they sit down and play. You just get to meet pretty much a ton of people just playing video games. You get to, like, they ask you, what type of video games you play. And honestly, it's just great.
No, I fully agree. Now, before I head towards wrapping things up, unless you have something itching to ask there, Nightflash.
I mean, I'm pretty good. I was going to ask, you know what? I do have something to ask. Who, out in the fuel, right? And no pressure here. You're looking at two fuel members in the face right now, so no pressure. But who is would you say is like the most impactful person in your life that you met through the fuel? Like, whether it be friends, you said the R6 team is your second family. So obviously it builds relationships, but what would you say is the strongest relationship that you built through the fuel?
So, strongest relationship is a kind of weird one when it comes to like the pretty much fuel, since honestly I love everyone. First like thing that comes to mind would definitely be our esports director Tyler, since he pretty much runs the whole thing. Secondly, it would probably have to be Apollo, having played a season with him. And then after that, of course, our assistant esports director, Angel Grime. Been pretty much a longtime friend now. It's been almost a year. She's on pretty much all of our Siege teams. Siege manager. She's been doing her thing over there. And then if I'm just going based off of everyone else except for pretty much like I guess you would call them managers. Honestly, the person that actually like I'm like down to just have a conversation is really gonna be the whole staff. Like I honestly don't think I haven't had any like bad conversations with anyone. Maybe like here and there if there's a conflict, but honestly, pretty much everyone's great. Love what you guys are doing here with the fuel report. If I could, stay here even longer, I would, but we do have to wrap up.
We do.
Anytime. So.
Yeah, well, you know what? If I'm going to have a little outro toss sent to me, I'm going to take it. Thank you for joining us, Purzaa, for another interview on the Fuel Report. When we come back, you'll join me and Nightflash back for another segment right after this. Segment of the Fuel Report. Just want to thank Purzaa again for stopping by, joining me in my little nook you always get to see me in here in the podcast room down in the M building. Now I feel like it is finally that time of the night. It is CJ's top 10 time. My favorite part of the show, what I am waiting for at all moments. And this week's top 10s. We're boiling down in the season a bit. We have all this playoff action going on, and I've noticed a few things. Number one, we just have less streams going on in general, so there's just less clips for us to pick from. Number two, the regular season's gone. You're not having people going for crazy 360 no-scopes. Everybody's dialed in, looking to execute at the highest level, so we might not see as much as the flashy razzle-dazzle, but I don't know about you guys, but for me personally, I feel like coming into the playoffs, we're going to see a lot more of crazy teamwork plays, crazy synergy plays, and big moments, which to me are just as impressive as someone popping off individually.
Yeah, I completely agree, especially with how much is at stake in these games and how careful a lot of teams play in playoffs. You're not going to catch so many more players lacking or sort of like out to lunch. Everybody's dialed in, they're locked in, they're focused because, it's crunch time for all these teams. One misstep, one misplay, and that can really cost you a series. So all these teams are super locked in, and to see, see teams getting, a 3K or a 4K is just kind of unreal. And no spoilers. I'm not giving away anything, but I'm super excited for this top 10s because there are some absolute bangers in here.
Yeah, for sure. You have to also realize that, this is for their season a lot of the times. If they were to lose, they're out. So there's that extra amount of pressure behind each and every one of these clips that make them all that much more interesting. But without further ado, CJ, I'm excited. Let's take it away here.
Yeah, let's dive on into our top 10s. We have no honorable mentions this week. We kept it to just a top 10. And the Rocket League season might be over, but they're going to have one last cameo in our top 10s. The synergy on display. Everybody gets a touch, and Van Rij is there for the finish. And you know what? Get used to Rocket League in your top 10s this week because you're going to be seeing a lot of them. It's Space beating all three defenders. My goodness, that actually takes a lot more skill than it looks like, just the timing to be able to get in there. Now this 8 clip here is some more Rocket League action. Now initially I said everybody got a touch, and I believe they did as Leopard finds the back of the net. Not sure if we have the replay included here on this clip. We don't. That was the replay, but I believe everybody got involved with a touch there. Coming in at number 7, more Rocket League. And it's dream teamwork on display. It was a steal, which allowed the setup to the back of the net. Coming in at 6, it's going to be Space finding the ball. He's going to send that to Leopard here. He's going to come flying in to Van Rij. What a centering pass. What a finish. And this Rocket League team has been on a roll in the bottom 5 of our top 10s. But it's time to switch things up after we see this replay from Van Rij. It is our 5th spot, and it's CSGO time. It's Cheap, who's becoming a bit of a regular here, and you know what to expect. Put in some work on the op. Going to get the hit marker there. He isn't able to finish it, but he's going to get the first flick. And Nylander, unfortunately, doing a little bit of bait work here for Cheap, who is laying in wait to find the 2-piece in a big moment for the Fuel in the playoffs, who are off to the finals this coming week. Back to some Rocket League action. Van Rij and Leopard had some crazy synergy going in the playoffs, and we're going to see it on display there. Van Rij to Leopard. Watch the replay here. Great play by Leopard off the wall. It's one of the nicest passes I got to see off him this season. And Van Rij made sure to put that in the back of the net. You know what? We're going to have some back and forth action now because it's CSGO time. We're going to see a Deeg 3-piece. Tyler's going to find the first. And that first one, definitely a toughie. It's not easy to aim up in CSGO. So that second one, also a toughie. High IQ in this last one. Well, this one might have been a little free, but great execution. Even more importantly, that was an eco round for the Fuel where they were able to cause some havoc. So well executed by Tyler. Coming in, it's our final Rocket League clip of the top 10s, and it's Space doing Space things. A mid-air reset, getting the job done, finding the back of the net, and in that clip, putting the Fuel up 4-3 against McGill. But our top spot, my goodness, Cheap is going to do Cheap things. Going to find not one. And I know he's not going to find only 2. Because Cheap has shown on the op, he's absolutely deadly. Ryan's been putting in the work all season long. And they found the 3-piece there in a 3-on-1 situation. Because you know what? It's one thing to get a 3-piece when your whole team's up and you just happen to catch 3 guys along the way. It's a whole nother situation to find a 3-piece and a 3-on-1. And you know what? The op's a great gun, but I'm not sure if it's the weapon of choice I'd want in a 3-on-1 situation, but that's because I'm not as good as Ryan. I'm not a quick scope opper in CSGO. I don't have skills like that, and that's why you're never going to see me in these top 10 clips. But guys, what do you think about the top 10s this week?
The CSGO clips are just wild. I mean, this is their their semifinals action this week, and they're pulling clips like that. That's really interesting to watch. Of course, Rocket League had a lot in this top 10 as well, and they looked to be playing really good. Unfortunately, they didn't get by the Redbirds in those final clips, even though they did have some great moments. And that ultimately did end their season. But damn, I'm excited to continue watching CSGO. I mean, we're going to get them again next Friday. And I can only hope to expect more from Cheap because those are truly impressive. I don't think I would ever be able to come close to pulling something like that off.
Sorry, go ahead, CJ.
Oh, I was just going to say, no, absolutely probably not, Reider. I don't think you'd ever be able to pull those off.
I concur with that statement. That's I agree, but no, you want to talk about clips. I was actually in the room while CS:GO was streaming, and that number one clip was hit. And I gave the boys a little encouragement. I said, you guys got to hit a clip. You got to make CJ's top tens. We need some CS. We need some CS love in CJ's top tens. And I looked at Ryan and I was like, man, you got to do something crazy. You know, you've sort of been owning the top tens recently. We got to have you in there again. And you know, he gets that 3K. He takes that number one spot. But as soon as that 3K's hit, Captain Uga Splata flips around, looks me dead in the face, and he says, "There's your clip for your top 10s, CJ." And I was taken back. I sort of looked at him and I was like, "You just call me CJ?" And the whole room just erupted in laughter. And you know, I got to say, that's got to be one of the funniest moments I've ever experienced, especially on the sidelines. You know, in game, you'll have a laugh. You know, somebody makes a misplay, somebody on the other team makes a misplay. Even casting, you'll have a laugh here and there, but I've never been sort of a third party in the room and laughed that much, because it was just a hilarious moment. But all around, great clips from everyone. You know, Space and the Rocket League team, just absolute demons out there. You know, the pass accuracy, you know, some of those goals, it literally just got handed to them on a platter because it was such a beautiful pass. And then, you know, Cheap just doing what he does best. He picks up that op, and you know, nobody is safe. Like, he's taking domes off like no one's business. So I'm super excited to get to see more CS, and we've got more games coming next week. So it won't just be CS in Rocket League, but it should be a good top tens next week too.
No, absolutely. Well, you know what? You just got to sit back and enjoy some CJ's top tens. I'm going to toss it to Reider and Nightflash's Ontario Esports breakdown. You guys have been doing some research here today. You got some you know what? We talked about esports. We've mentioned it a lot throughout this podcast. It's up and coming. 5 years ago, you know, you'd say you casted esports as a job, or you played on a team, and any adult would look at you like you were smoking something. You know what I mean? Whereas now we have facilities. People are getting funding. There's so much more to it, and you guys got a breakdown for us, so take it away.
Yeah, you know, there's so many collegiate teams from, especially just in Ontario, but I think we're going to start things off here with Carleton, and you know, I got to say, you know, they are the largest student-run organization at Carleton U, which just right off the bat is impressive. But not only that, they're the largest esports org in Ottawa, and they are one of the most winning teams in collegiate esports, and they're completely student managed. Every player, every staff member is a volunteer, and I really, what can I say about these guys? You know, Ottawa is, and it's an amazing city, and I think Carleton does an amazing job at representing their city. They're not the only esports org there. You've got U Ottawa. They also have an esports team, but Carleton really sort of taking the cake and sort of showing how good they are and how much a student driven and a student run club or organization can sort of really take things off. And you know, you see it there, 8 championships in the last year. That's insane. Reider, you want to talk about our next school here?
Yeah, well, we're moving on to the Lambton Lions, and these guys are also quite up and coming in the esports space. They have their own esports arena. It's got 3 primary purposes. It's a lab space. It's part of the college's esports entrepreneurship and administration program. So it's actually used by students for student things. But in the after hours, it's an arena used by their esports varsity teams, which is we talk about how beneficial it is to have a space at the college where your guys can get together and play as a team in person. Makes so much more difference, as we've found out at the back end of last semester and this entire semester. And it's also an entertainment facility that can be rented out to the community or for personal or corporate use. So they also they rent out the space, and they make a little money back, because of course all of those PCs are extraordinarily expensive. So Lambton on the rise, as well as it seems like these esports rooms for all schools are just popping up.
How cool would that be to have a corporate event at a LAN center? Like that would be so awesome, team building. Oh yeah, we just rented the local college's LAN center. We're gonna go play Valorant for 4 hours. Like that'd be so awesome. But moving on, we've got the heavyweight in Ontario esports, especially collegiate. We got St. Clair. You hear us talk about them a lot. They're Canada's first varsity esports program, which is huge on its own. But a few years ago, they opened up their esports arena, and it was part of a $23 million expansion, sort of creating their own innovation village. So Fanshawe is currently, we're currently under construction. Our innovation village is being built, and that's sort of what the Saints have with their esports arena. It's not just an esports arena. There's, everything technology goes on in this building, and I believe it's called the Nexus building. And it's so cool. They have so much stuff. They have 64 gaming PCs, dedicated training facilities for their esports teams. So a team can book out the facility and sort of just have a heyday, get scrims in, just get competitive reps in, and just sort of work on their overall team play. Just so cool. I think that's so huge. They have a 6v6 competitive stage, which 6v6 now isn't, isn't really useful because Overwatch is really the only game that was 6v6, and they've moved to 5v5. But now you have a station for one of your coaches to be sitting there and sort of have comms as well, which is pretty cool. They have a full broadcast studio, which I know personally is so cool. Me as a caster, I'd love to have a full broadcast studio. As you can see, we've got some pictures of that up on the screen. We also have 3 dedicated VR spaces connected directly to their broadcast studio. So if they wanted to do a VR stream, they could, Beat Saber tournaments, whatever tournaments. That's so awesome. They've got streaming rooms for their students. They have 5 of those, which is also cool, completely soundproof. They have so much going on. And then on top of everything else, they have 8 consoles in their own sort of room, just ready for drop-ins. So you want to drop in, play some games. You have 8 stations for console gaming, which is awesome. But moving on, I think Durham's up next, and I'm going to let Reider take that, unless anybody's got anything on their mind about St. Clair.
Hold on. I can't just rush over St. Clair quite like that. For me, you read the price tag of that facility, but even just a quick glance looking at those pictures, my goodness, great God, like what a luxury. You know what I mean? You always, the classic old timer, where was that back in my day, sort of mindset. But you know what? I'm just 23 years old now myself. And it's like, geez, if that was something that was around when I was fresh out of high school, well, I probably would have dropped out instantly, actually, because of it. But other than that, it still would have been one of the coolest things on planet Earth. But when you talk about developing a program, you know what I mean? Feel good, look good, play good. Being able to just show up to a facility with that level of professionalism. Our fuel room here down at Fanshawe is lovely. You mentioned it, Nightflash. We got a new building coming, which is a student union building in general, but the fuel will certainly be a part of it, have a nice floor and a bigger sort of area set up there. But just to have that professional setup to, get an opportunity to play on a stage, never have to worry about scrimming, being able to bring your friends down. We've talked about in the fuel, the community building aspects of the one room we have. Well, imagine a whole downright facility. It's just what a luxury, what a thing. And you just have to expect maybe a decade from now, that's just a running standard everywhere. And it's cool to sort of step back and take a second to imagine where is esports going and how big can it ultimately grow?
Yeah, that's a great question there, CJ. But yeah, I think St. Clair has really sort of set the bar. They are one of the most winning schools in collegiate esports, hands down. They have teams that not only compete at the collegiate level, but also compete at the professional level, which is wicked. And they have this amazing facility. So they've sort of set the bar for other schools. Like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is what's been working. Now you guys have to match that if you want to hang with us. And I think what they've done is so good and so impactful for the collegiate esports scene. And not only that, but also for community building. Like, they can host a LAN and you can have, you can go cheer on in person. That is so awesome. Normally that costs you what to go to a LAN, a professional LAN. You're looking at like what, $100, $120. How much do you think tickets are to go see the Saints? If any money, I'd say, $30, and you get to go experience what a LAN is like and sort of see if you'd like the vibe and the atmosphere. So I think no matter what, St. Clair has sort of set the bar. They've set the standard of what is coming, and I think that's going to be huge. Reider, you got any thoughts on this? You're a big prod guy. You're a big caster. What do you think about their setup going on there?
Yeah, well, St. Clair is, of course, like the premier esports college, like not just in Canada, but in North America entirely. They've put so much effort into making it what it is. And not only is it for their own esports players, but they also host other colleges for LANs, which is something that like we've wanted to do here, of course. But it's not as easy because we don't have an esports arena quite yet. So St. Clair gets to invite other schools to come play against them in person. And that's a really big difference for gamers because when you're playing with another or against another team in person, the ping is essentially 0 and you get a true level of competition. There's no excuses from that point whatsoever. So competitively playing against in person another team in person is so much more valuable. And then of course their prod just looks amazing, and not very many schools rival their level of production. So I really hope that St. Clair's setup becomes the standard, but I really think it's past that. But I'm sure in 10 years all three of us will probably be saying, wow, I really wish we had that about esports programs in a decade from now. But for today, 2020, 2022, 2023, that is a fantastic setup that they have over at St. Clair.
Yeah, for me, it's just, we talked about the Apex tournament we're going to be hosting here next week. For me, it's just the thought of being able to host more events with ease, because for us, with a little virtual event, we get crazy viewership. We have people coming out. They're so engaged, and it's a lot of fun. So just being able to run stuff like that a little more frequently and regularly would be a ton of fun. Like, I'd love to be able to run a COD LAN, a League of Legends LAN, you know what I mean? Just it takes you a step further from your comp teams can find more success just due to the level of facility, but your community outreach and your involvement running community events can also just reach an absolute new level with that sort of setup.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, without further ado, we can move off St. Clair here and talk about another interesting school in Ontario. The Durham Lords is not a name you hear too often, but they actually have a similar setup to St. Clair. Their esports room is 3,000 square feet of gaming space, and they also like to hold tournaments of all varieties. They have over 50 PCs and consoles and over 50 games to play. It sounds like paradise. There's just one kicker that I want to chat about. The Durham College, that's based in Oshawa, they charge $3.75 an hour to access their esports room. But they do have a deal for 3 hours for $10. That is, I tried to look around and see if any other schools did this. I did not see any school that charged students. It says students, staff, and alumni can access the room. So it's definitely a different approach, but I think they found it necessary to have a room of that size that possibly rivals, St. Clair's setup in size at least, right? So. But I don't know. Do you guys agree with $3.75 an hour? I mean, just think about how many people at Fanshawe use our esports room and how much they would be spending if they spent the same amount of time if we charge $3.75 an hour.
Well, at $3.75, the room's paying for itself, I guess you could say, over time. But you just got to imagine 3,000 square feet. Like, that's the size of the upper middle class house. Like, that's quite a facility. So I'm sure they'll be paying it off via that $3.75 payment for a long time to come. But you know what? At first glance, my inclination to respond to that is, that's outrageous. They're charging for the room. But when you think about it and you take a step back, well, if you're going to an arcade, you're easily going to spend way more than $10, and you're going to be there probably for less than 3 hours. And if you just think about the luxuries you get to enjoy in life, just $3.75 isn't that crazy to me.
Now, if you want to step back and compare it to every other program in every other situation, yeah, it might not be ideal, and a lot of other students may not have that opportunity. But I'm sure, Fanshawe is baking some sort of cost in somewhere that's allowing them not to charge us that. Whereas, money comes, money goes, and everything has to be paid for. So ultimately, they might not be getting us with a $375 fee, but I'm sure they're getting us somewhere. So for me personally, although at first glance I thought that's a little much to be asking their students to pay regularly, it's not a crazy outrageous fee, and it may inhibit players from going down and using the room every single day, because I know we have people who frequent our fuel room very, very regularly with no problem to that. Shout out to anyone who has the opportunity, and that's what the room's there for, you know what I mean? But it might just, stop people from being in there 24/7, focus on your schoolwork. I'm sure it would also make the general experience in that room just a little more special, you know what I mean? Where you can't just hop in at any time and give it a go. It's more like, hey, you just got paid this week like me, get a couple of buddies, invest, head down for a couple hours of play. So you know what? I'm not sitting here and saying it's a great idea and it's the best thing in the world, but honestly, I get business. I don't have a big problem with it.
I mean, when you think about it, what is the reason that schools have been setting up these esports room, right? Like, what is the interest behind it? Well, of course, there is a large amount of gamers who are getting to college age and they are looking to play esports competitively. So St. Clair, they're the best, right? And you always hear about esports players wanting to play at St. Clair, go to St. Clair, and it's very clear they have the best esports teams, and it's largely due to that huge facility that they can advertise. And at the end of the day, they make it back in tuition, and people who want to go to St. Clair over their local competitors go to St. Clair over their regional competitors. If you're that good at esports. So I think that's really the drive behind these schools building these esports facilities and building these rooms. And it's really two sides of a coin. The other side of the coin for Durham is their local counterpart, Ontario Tech. Ontario Tech is a school that did not build a 3,000 square foot facility. Instead, they have a quite small one, similar to ours, just a little bit smaller actually. And actually, in the results, OTSU is frequently higher on the power rankings than Durham is, and even though they don't have that massive arena that Durham has. So, you got to walk a line. You got to walk a balance if you're a school. And I really don't think that charging that $375 is the call. And maybe Durham would have done better at advertising their esports program if they didn't make such a large room, but it seemed to have worked out for them, as their esports program currently is thriving, and it's only going to get better from here. And who knows, maybe one day they pay off the room and they start offering it to their students for free, which is very, very possible. I know, Nightflash, I mean, what's your take on this? Are you with the 375 or are you against it?
I could not be more against it, honestly. Like, if I'm this is just my personal opinion, right? And I am pampered in the fact that I do go to Fanshawe, and there's a lot of activities at Fanshawe that don't cost money. You've got the golf sim, you have the gym, you've got table tennis, you have racquetball, there's you have intramural sports, and realistically, I don't understand why Durham feels the need to charge for this, because, like we said, there is tuition, and sure, like, colleges, I'm sure over time they do lose money because prices of salaries go up and X, Y, and Z go up, and but you can always add a fee into people's tuition. And I know here at Fanshawe we have a fee in our tuition for those, like, for special things like the golf simulator and like the esports room. Obviously, it's not really connected to the esports room because we're sort of outside of Fanshawe, and the fact that we're the Fanshawe Student Union. But that there is a fee built in that covers intramural sports, and it covers all, like, the gym and so many different things. And I'm sure Durham has something like that. And you would think that instead of saying, okay, we're going to charge people by the hour, right? We're going to say, and why, what's such an odd number in 375 as well, but that's kind of irrelevant. instead of charging people by the hour, you think you would just sort of up the fee by whatever, like $25, $50. And then even if people aren't interested in using the esports room, it's still getting paid for. It seems like a bit of for people who aren't interested in using the room, it seems like a plus, but for people who are, it seems kind of like a bit of a sham because, like CJ said, we do have people who spend a lot of time in the like our LAN center, our esports room, whatever you want to call it. And like if we were charging this 375 or the $10 for 3 hours, they're over the span of a month they'd be spending like a couple $100. Like I know that there are some people when the room just first opened were there for the 12 hours that the room is open. And you have to think about that. 12 hours in one day, you're ending up spending $40 in the day. And let's say you spent the week there, like all 12 hours, which by no means do I condone. You should definitely be going to class and doing your schoolwork and having time to go outside, experience life outside of video games. But some people can handle that. Some people can manage catching up on a week of class or whatever. Like can we do the math here? 7 times 40, you're looking at like over $200. So for people who really want to use the room and want to have a good time, and even if if they're open on weekends, right? You got no class on the weekend. Let's say they're open 12 hours like us. You're charging for, and they couldn't bring their PC or they don't have a PC to bring, or I know that there's a lot of the overseas students that use the our LAN center because bringing a PC on a plane is kind of risky. You don't want it to break. You don't want it to get lost. Like that's they're already paying a premium in their tuition. And now on top of that, you're saying, oh yeah, by the way, like if you want to play here for the 12 hours, you're going to owe us $40. Like I'm personally completely against it. There's so many other options, so many better ways, better routes to take to pay off your esports center than charging people to use it, even if it's just an extra bit of tuition, like an extra $25, right? Like, because realistically, not everyone at Durham is going to be into esports. Not everybody's going to want to use the room. So if you but in the same sort of light, not everybody at Fanshawe is going to use the golf sim, or not everybody's going to do intramural sports. Yet we're all still paying for it. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like there's better routes to go about it instead of essentially punishing people for wanting to use something that you're providing.
The other thing that I had on my mind was I don't know the specifics of their policy on charging for the room, but of course they have esports teams that compete, right? Do these players have to pay the $375 every time they play? Surely not for when they're playing a league game, right? They'll be allowed to use the facility for free. But what if they just want to come in and practice? Like, these are the esports players. They're putting a competition, and surely if they don't allow them to use that room whenever they want, especially if they don't have a PC to use at home, and even then, I'm sure the ping is better in their LAN center than it is wherever else they're playing. So it just, to me, if they are charging their own players to practice using their room, it gets a little bit on the ridiculous side for me. I don't think that paying $375 an hour or $10 for 3 hours is completely outside the realm of what's okay and what's not. But surely there's a lot more that you have to think about, and I think that maybe Durham didn't find the right formula here, but whatever it is that policy is, they certainly have a nice LAN center, and we can't deny that. It looks very, very special, and I'm sure whoever does fork over the $10 for the 3 hours is very, very happy with what they're getting for it as well. So Durham, we can only expect to see them more on the ECBS top 10 rankings, but we don't currently. I don't think they've been on any of them yet. But considering with the facility that they have and the people that they're attracting to their school, we should be watching out for the name Durham Lords in multiple titles very, very soon. Lastly, I think we have 2 more schools here, so I'll let you take the next one here. Nightflash. Toronto Metro, formerly Ryerson.
Yeah, so they recently expanded their esports program this year by joining TSM's collegiate program, which is so huge for collegiate esports. Having these big name teams, I can think of a few. I know that Boston Breach for competitive COD, they signed with a college. I can't remember which college it was, but now you have TSM sort of coming in, and it's not just sorry, I was going to call them Ryerson. It's not just TMU. They're doing this with a lot of schools, which sort of it gives these players a route to go. If you're loyal to TSM and you have the talent to sort of hang with the big dogs in the league, you have a route to climb. Now you're directly under a TSM institution, which I think is super important. And you get your foot in the door with TSM, and then if you have the talent, you can move up, which I think is super cool. And I think it's super great for all competitive teams. But not only that, they are also playing host to the Toronto Ultra for their major this year. And they also played host for the Toronto Ultra last year, as they do have a rather large area to play in, as they do own formerly Maple Leaf Gardens. I'm spacing on the name of it now. But not only that, but they don't have an esports center. They don't have a LAN center, and their teams compete, and they compete well and land well in Canadian power rankings. So I guess it kind of goes to show that having an esports center and having a LAN room doesn't mean that you're going to place high on those rankings. And I think that's kind of showing, as like Reider said, Durham, I have yet to see on a power ranking. I've yet to see them crack the top 10 in Ontario schools, Canadian schools, where TMU, you sort of see them in almost every game, and they haven't made this massive investment. If anything, they now have an investor with TSM. So I think it's two heads of a coin, and I'm really excited to sort of see what TMU continues to do, especially after signing with TSM. I think that means only good things for them, especially with TSM sort of creating this network of collegiate teams. Yeah. I think that's going to be so huge, not just for TMU, but also for collegiate esports in a whole.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, you know what? Ultimately, I fully agree with you. First off, I just want to touch on the whole facility business. And you're absolutely right. It's a tool. It's something to use for your improvement, to better yourself, create that synergy. But it's not a must. You know what I mean? They're all throughout history. We've had to make do with what we have available. And there's no guarantee having the shiniest, prettiest new tools is going to ensure you find success or any more success than anybody else. Because you know what? The guys down at TMU could simply be working harder than players on teams that have facilities. So there's never a guarantee either which way, but it's definitely an interesting thing and an interesting note you've made there that like, hey, you know what? Durham has a super sick facility, but it doesn't mean they're turning up in all the leagues. And TMU, who might lack a facility, also doesn't mean they're not turning up in leagues. But the other thing I wanted to touch upon there is I love this TSM collegiate program. I think it's a brilliant idea, and it just reminds me of prep schools for sports in high schools. And another thing that we see is the Toronto FC Academy, where you can go to school but still be in that development program for the Toronto FC. And you know what? I've talked about it a few times on the podcast. You know, I feel like in the next 5 years, colleges are going to start to, scout out these up and coming high school players a little more. We're going to start to see more high school teams, high school programs. And I feel like we're just going to see the expansion of this sort of, I'd like to call it a farm system where TSM can just, keep an eye on Toronto Metro, and maybe they see a player they really like, and because of that connection, it's just an easier transition to acquire them. But just in the whole farm system scheme in theory, I think it's super interesting, and I'd love to see more of it.
I actually am really skeptical of this whole TSM partnership. I mean, I did the research on their collegiate program, and it says that they provide coaching and experiences with TSM for the players. But realistically, what kind of coaching do they provide? Is it in person? Is it online? That can be a big difference. And otherwise, do I actually think that Toronto Metro players are going to go and play for TSM teams? Is that going to be like a direct farm system? I don't think so. I don't think so at all, actually. I think this TSM partnership might be Toronto Metro outsourcing their esports department, because their lack of facility. I mean, it does say that they have one of the largest esports clubs in the province, but I don't know how many of their staff are actually esports orientated, right? As St. Clair's got a large staff that is there to run their teams and run their esports program, their broadcasts, all that. And I don't know if Metro has very much of that at all. So I don't really know how effective this is going to be for Toronto Metro. And the way that the esports industry is going right now, I can see more high school players being pulled right from high school to the pros than college players. High school kids is the age where they, you sort of start to go pro, and it's the age where they are scouted more. And I don't really think that esports teams are really looking for 21-year-olds to develop. What would be the youngest age for college? 18, 19. They're looking for those 16-year-old, 17-year-old kids who are going Radiant and Valorant and are top 250 in COD, right? So I think that if TSM partnered with high schools, like really big name high schools, they might get more prospects out of that. But I think TSM here is just trying to get their name out into the collegiate scene with this partnership with Toronto Metro. The coaching is certainly going to be valuable to those players, but to really what effect we are going to have to see come the fall, for sure. Definitely Toronto Metro is a school to watch out for. They're always on the top 10 power rankings on any esport. They're a large club as well. So anytime you see you're going up against TMU, you better be very, very careful and very, very prepared against those guys, as our Valorant team will be in round 1 of the playoffs this week on Monday. So definitely going to be a fun game to watch, especially after this conversation. But moving on, Conestoga, the Conestoga Condors. So you have one more? You have one more there?
I have a counterpoint to your college athlete, like college students, college esport players not getting called up. I think, arguably Call of Duty is one of the hardest esports to go professional in. I'd say like Call of Duty and Valorant are very close in that sense, and Overwatch as well, just because they've completely gone franchise instead of sort of open bracket. And one of an extremely good player for Optic Texas was a CCL player. So I don't really think that you can say, these people in college aren't going to get picked up, when an amazing talent in Dan Ghosty got picked up, played in the CCL, went to Ilney, I believe, university in Chicago. He's taking law. He's still attending that university as well. He does online classes. Played in the CCL, found success in the CCL, decided that he was no longer going to play in the CCL, went and played in Challengers, played extremely well in Challengers over the end of Vanguard and the beginning of Modern Warfare 2. And now he's playing for one of the most successful organizations to ever be created. It's up there with FaZe and with TSM and G2 and all these people. So I don't really think that you saying that, college players aren't really where people are looking, because think about it this way, right? If, let's say, Optic were to have partnered with Ilney, they could have, Ghosty could have skipped the challenger scene and just gone straight from CCL to the CDL. And I think it sort of cuts out that middleman. You have all these sort of semi-professional leagues like challengers in both Valorant and in Call of Duty. You've got, tier 2 teams. And I think that with teams partnering with colleges, because some people are like, you know what, I've got to go to college because, what if I don't make it? I need that backup plan, right? So I while you brought up some good points, I wholeheartedly disagree with you that teams aren't scouting college players.
I have a counterpoint to that there, Nightflash. I think statistically there's been more CDL players that went to the CCL after dropping out of the CDL than there has been CCL players that have moved up into the CDL. I think the CCL, the Collegiate Call of Duty League, is more likely to be the retirement home for washed-up CDL players than it is to be a prospect pool. I certainly think that players are too old at that point to really be considered by top competing teams. And like you said, there's that step. They got to play Challenger first. The CCL just isn't there competitively. Right, Challengers is where the magic happens. And we see way more for Call of Duty specifically. Like, Ultra has 2 Challenger development teams. They have a European one and they have a North American one. So clearly they're putting in more effort to farm players out of Challengers than they are in the CCL whatsoever. And if they were going to take a school system to develop prospects, it would most likely be high school. The only thing preventing that has to be public schools' reluctance to promote shooting games is probably the one thing counterpoint to that.
You know what? With all the American teams involved, I'm not sure if I can judge them for that sort of approach or mindset. For me, you know what? I think you both make incredibly compelling points. You know, even at worst, you know, the CCL could develop into an MLS style thing where it is, you know, a high level league, but it functions for maybe a downturn for upper end talent. But for me, the only way I could ever get a conclusive sort of definitive answer personally between who I would side with between you two is the average age of professional players. And I don't know, you guys might have a better idea than I do, but it's not like we're running around and playing some sort of athletically demanding sport. And you know what? There is, you know, the hand-eye coordination, the reaction time aspect of things. But to me, it's just, you could, in theory, if you wanted to, play a Call of Duty at a high level for 2 decades. If you were just fully tuned in and dialed in. There's not necessarily an age gap. Now, Justin, I fully agree in the sense that, like, you are right. You're obviously going to want to get those younger players where you can influence their development, what they like, their habits, and you can grow those habits as they develop into a professional player. But and one part of me, I can't rule out any level of farm and development because you can never have enough of it. You can never extend your organization, your outreach far enough, because at the end of the day, you don't need to turn out a consistent, out of a 10-player COD team, you don't need to pull 5 players every season to go pro one day. But if you can find that one diamond in the rough every couple of years, it could be worth it there alone. But yeah, for me, the big point I just wanted to make is, you know what? I'm really curious there's no way I could gain this knowledge from a scouting perspective for these pro teams. How much of a role does age play? Because obviously it's better to get someone younger. You can develop them. You can develop more than just the player, but you can help develop the person. But you know what? You get a 24-year-old who's torn up the CCL scene for a couple of seasons. They're a little more mature, a little more dialed in and ready for that full-time level of commitment. I see the merit in both of your points for sure.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think that scouting young talent is important, but you also have to, you also have to remember that a lot of leagues do have a minimum age requirement. Like you have to be an adult to compete in these leagues. Like, the CDL, you have to be 18 to compete. I'm sure CSGO has one. It's probably 17 or 18. But there's so many games that have a minimum age requirement that, if sure you can scout people in high school, not debating that, but until they hit that age of 18 or 19 or whatever it is, I believe it's 18, they're kind of useless to you. Like, you can scout them, you can have conversations with them, but realistically, you can't really start developing them and putting them into a higher tier bracket. Like, you're saying the higher tier bracket out of high school would be the challenger scene, right? Well, challengers, you have to be 18 to compete in. So let's say somebody has a late birthday and they're in high school, right? They have a birthday in December. You can't put them in challengers until they would theoretically be going into college. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in the sense that I agree with you that getting talent at a younger age is beneficial, But at the same time, like, you don't know if that player is going to fall off in the next Call of Duty, because every year they seem to change something. Like movement players from the previous years in Call of Duty, now a lot of them aren't as good because movement in Modern Warfare 2 is not fluid. It's very choppy. You don't have a lot of freedom in it. So I think that you kind of have to go year by year. And if somebody is competing well in the CCL, pick them up, put them on your challengers team, and then see how they do in challengers. And if they continue to pop off, bring them up to the league if you need a spot. Like, that's kind of where my head's at. Is, you can see these kids going rogue at 16, 17, but realistically they are useless to you until they turn 18, because they can't compete in challengers, they can't compete in the CDL, and you never know what's going to come in the next year. We don't know if we're going to have a jetpack COD next year. We don't know if this game cycle is going to be 2 years. That's all still up in the air, and it's just sort of, I think it's interesting, because you can either go with sort of the safe bet of somebody who is popping off in challengers, popping off in the CCL, or you can sort of take the risk and pick up that player out of high school, have them, either on the payroll or as a sub for your challengers team, or just scrimming with your challengers team and sort of feel them out. Or you can go with the surefire, like, oh, this guy's popping off in challengers, or he's popping off in the CDL or the CCL, like from a team like St. Clair, or Farmingdale, or anyone really, who is known to have like a nasty, like a top 10, top 4, top 5 CCL team. That's kind of like a sure pick, because like I said, Dan Ghosty came from the CCL. That guy is a top tier caliber player, and he got his start arguably in the CCL, in the competitive scene. He played a little bit in Advanced Warfare. He's gross in Advanced Warfare. Then they instituted the age cap, or the age minimum, and then he fell off the map. And then he went from CCL. He's like, okay, I'm dominating in this, but I want to play in something, in a prize pool where, and I can pick my teammates. So then he went to challengers. But if teams set up farm teams from college, then they would have the funding to pick up good players to go to college. And it's kind of like it's a circle almost, where they need the funding to pick up good players, and offer them scholarships, but no team wants to take the risk. You know what I mean? And I think TSM taking this risk is going to be a really good thing for the industry.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, I can agree with that for sure. But we do have one more school to talk about here, the Conestoga Condors, who just recently opened up a facility as well, November 7th, 2022. So at the start of this semester, very close to when the Fanshawe opened up. There's 36 gaming PCs, 6 player competition desks, and control room for live broadcasts. I gotta tell you what, this was their launch year for this upgrade to their esports program, and honestly, their branding looks fantastic. I love the colors, and that room looks very, very nice. I would not mind playing in there myself. And more than that, Conestoga is not one of the biggest colleges in Ontario, but they certainly play like one, as they are frequently on the ECBS top 10s and in a multitude of esports, and we should only see that grow with the introduction of this brand new room. I'm actually excited to see what these guys do next, because their broadcasts look really well done as well. They are Ontario's next biggest esports program, and I think that could ring true.
Yeah, I know that they just recently got a fair bit of funding from their school. So I think these guys are really going to explode on the scene. Funding is, like, we talk about it, and it really it does play a massive factor, because with funding you can create a land center, or you can offer people scholarships, which then sort of give them more of a reason to come to your school. There's so many sort of things that you can do with funding, that really play a massive role in the success of your of your program. It obviously it's not the only contributing factor. Sometimes it's luck of the draw, and if a school gets lucky and has a nasty team, that's great. But I think that funding really plays a massive role in getting the funding that they've got. I'm very excited to see how that sort of carries over in the next few seasons and see if they do explode onto the scene. I personally think they will, but not too sure yet.
Yeah, before we wrap things up and I toss things back to you, Nightflash, we've just spent so much time talking about other schools and facilities. We'd be remiss if we didn't note quickly, you and I, we were walking down towards the fuel room just yesterday or the day before, and you're like, what's that out of the corner of my eye? And all the glass is now up on the new, I'm not sure what the specific wording we're using it for, but it's an innovation village of some sorts. I swear it's like 4 or 5 stories. It is a massive building, and honestly, it's fairly nice looking. There's actually some cherry blossoms blooming outside of it right now. Nice little facility, but the fuel room is a great setup we have right now to use free of charge, as we've mentioned so far in this segment. But this is just a temporary setup we have down by the athletics department, and we too will be moving into a bigger, new booming setup in the next year or two. So, we just broke down all these amazing setups at other schools. Well, we too at Fanshawe in the coming years will also have a new, nice gaming facility set up and ready to go. So something to look forward to here as well.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome when we get that done, and I'm personally excited. I most likely won't be here to experience it, but I'm pretty gassed to see what Fanshawe can do with that. I know Reider's also gassed about it. I'm pretty sure that's really the only thing that we can say about it. But as CJ said, this is going to be the end of our show. I'd like to briefly thank Justin for coming in as a last-minute sub once again. This guy's our rock. He's our go-to sub, and if any of us are ever ill or not here, he will definitely be filling in for us. I'd also like to thank Apollo, our producer, our head of production here. He does such a great job with all these transitions and the graphics that we use, and he really puts in a lot of work. I know his nose was really to the grindstone today. We did a lot today, and everything turned out looking amazing. So thanks for Apollo. I've been Nightflash. I've been joined by Reider and CJ. We're going to take a quick look at the schedule here, I believe, if we have it. So there it is, Monday, which is in 2 days. We've got some Valorant going on. And then Tuesday, that R6, big match of R6 on Tuesday. Let's see if they can continue to go undefeated. Friday, the 21st, Fanshawe versus Purdue, the championship game. Will we get our first CSGO trophy, or will we fall short to Purdue once again? I'm really rooting for the boys there. Rainbow Six Siege once again on the following Tuesday, the 25th, and then on May 2nd, once again, some more R6 Siege. So be sure to stay tuned for all of that. Not a whole heck of a lot going on, but a lot of exciting stuff nonetheless. Thank you for watching. I've been Nightflash, joined by CJ and Reider, my co-hosts. We will see you guys next week, 6 p.m. Saturday, same time, same channel. And without further ado, we'll see you guys later. Peace.